मिलितं मयि श्रीगुरुवे नमः। श्रीचैतन्यमनोभीष्टं स्थापितं येन भूतले स्वयं रूपा कदा मह्यं ददाति स्वपदान्तिकं। वन्देऽहं श्रीगुरो श्रीयुतपदकमलं श्रीगुरुं वैष्णवांश्च श्रीरूपं साग्रजातं सहगणरघुनाथान्वितं तं सजीवम् साद्वैतं सावधूतं परिजनसहितं कृष्णचैतन्यदेवं श्रीराधाकृष्णपादान् सहगणललिता श्रीविशाखान्वितांश्च नम ॐ विष्णुपादाय कृष्णपृष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमते भक्तिवेदान्त स्वामिन्निति नामिने। नमस्ते सारस्वते देवे गौरवाणी प्रचारिणे निर्विशेष शून्यवादी पाश्चात्य देश तारिणे। हे कृष्ण करुणा सिंधु दीनबंधु जगतपते गोपेश गोपिका कांत राधा कांत नमस्तुते। तप्त कांचन गौरांगे राधे वृंदावनेश्वरी वृषभानुसुते देवी प्रणमामि हरिप्रिये। वाञ्छाकल्पतरुभ्यश्च कृपा सिन्धुभ्य एव च पतितानां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः। जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासादि गौर भक्त वृंद। हरे कृष्णा 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे। Hare Krishna. So welcome to the Bhaktyaloka series. Yesterday we began discussion on the fourth among the six faults, that is Niyamagraha. Atyahara prayasascha prajalpo Niyamagraha. We first discussed what is the difference between a principle and a rule. And principle is like a compass, rule is like a road. Generally, rules are the best way to follow principles. We gave this example of compass itself, then example of principle to remember Krishna rules, 16 rounds, then temple, Vastu. Then we gave a Shastri quotation, how remembrance of Krishna and not forgetting Krishna is a principle. And this is accomplished by all the Vidya and Nished, you know. And then we went quite a detail into this verse also. And then from the nectar of instruction, the twofold meaning of niyam, agraha and agraha, insisting on rules and regulations without understanding the purpose, and neglecting the rules and regulations of Shastra, which are meant for spiritual development. And then we gave examples for this also. And then difficult to follow, you know. So it's not so important. So both ways are again not healthy in our practices. And then we went into the Bhaktyaloka article of, that niyamas are of two kinds, vidhi and nished. And conditioned souls can, from the lowest position following the vidhi nished, gradually, step by step, attain the highest position. At each level, by following, one advances. If one doesn't follow, one degrades. This is the point we, yesterday discussed quite in detail. And then we, from the Sri Harinam Chintamani, discussed that when one is at the stage of Nishta, then he'll have to follow the Nishta's do's and don'ts. And that will elevate him to Ruchi. At the stage of Ruchi, then one should follow the do's and don'ts at Ruchi stage. If he is still inclined to, attach to the lower rules, then he is not qualified to stay there. He has to come down, purify himself, and then come to Ruchi. At Ruchi, there is attraction for Krishna, but if you have still attraction for the material world, for material rasas, then you're not qualified to stay there. So yesterday we had a very elaborate discussion on this, from the Sri Harinam Chintamani. Now we'll continue further in Niyamagraha. This is very important principle. I hope yesterday uh, all could understand this. Steadiness in one's position is piety, and deviation from one's position is impiety. There is no other piety and impiety than this. So this is Bhaktivinoda Thakur's statement, and this is also very important for to understand. And he quotes this verse from the Uddhav Gita. Therefore, in the Srimad Bhagavatam 11:21 2 to 7, Lord Shiva spoke these verses. Sve sve adhikare anishta saguna parakirtita viparayastu doshasya ubayor esha nishchaya deshakaladibhavanam vastunam mama sattama guna dosho vidiyete niyamartham hi karmanam. So this is 11, 21, 2 and 7. Second verse and seventh verse of the Uddhav Gita. Okay, let's now try to understand this. Steadiness in one's own position. Sve sve adhikari ya nishta is declared to be actual piety. Sa guna parikirta. Whereas deviation from one's position is considered impiety. Viparayas tu doshasya. In this way, the two are definitely ascertained. Uvayor esha nishchaya. O saintly Uddhava, Sattama, best among the saintly devotees, in order to restrict materialistic activities, karmanam niyamartam hi, I have established mama vidiyete, that which is proper and improper among all material things, vastunam guna dosho, including time, space, and physical objects, desha kaladi bhavanam. Okay, now I would like to explain this steadiness in one's position is piety, and you know this principle from an example from the Bhagavad Gita, because Sve Sve Yadikari Nishta. I hope I'm sharing the screen. No, okay. Sve Sve Adhikari Ya Nishta. No, Sve Sve Adhikari Ya Nishta. Anyone knows in the Bhagavad Gita where this Nishta term comes? In Bhagavad Gita, which verse it comes? Anyone remembers or anyone knows? Anyone knows? Okay. So it is there in the third chapter, third verse. Lokesmin dvida nishta purapokta maya naga jnana yogena sankyanam karma yogena yoginam. So Krishna in the second chapter had discussed about Sthita Pragya, and he had also spoken about Karmaneva Adhikaraste. Now Arjuna is confused. If Gyan is better than karma, then why are you telling me to do this Ghora karma? So that's how he begins his question. And Krishna in the answer speaks this, Loke asmin dhrida nishta. So here also Sve Sve Adhikari Ya Nishta. That word has come. Now, somebody by performing Nishkama Karma Yoga has purified his heart and he has become self-realized. And the inclination to perform karma is not there in him. He is qualified for Jnana Yoga, Jnana Yogena Sankhyanam. Now, his Nishta or his level of advancement, he is Adhikar now for Jnana Yoga. Now, being Adhikar for Jnana Yoga, he has to practice Jnana Yoga. If he doesn't practice Jnana Yoga, then he is at fault. And being qualified for our Gyan Yoga, if he is practicing Karma Yoga, then he's also at fault. Ubayor, both ways he is at fault. Now let's take the other way example. Arjuna is qualified for Karma Yoga because he's Kshatriya. Now being qualified for Karma Yoga, if he takes up Gyan Yoga, which he is not qualified for, then he is at fault. And being qualified for Karma Yoga, if he gives up Karma Yoga, then also he's at fault. So you understand this point? This is very important for us to understand. Now I'll give in a third example. Somebody is at the level of Nishta. Nishta is the stage I'm speaking, not, Nishta is also means faith also. Here it is faith. Nishta is also a stage. Shraddha, Sadhu, Sangha, Bhajan, Kriya, Anarth, Nivritti, Nishta, Ruchi. Okay, let's take the example of Ruchi. Somebody is at the stage of Ruchi, then he has to follow the rules and regulations which are there for Ruchi. If he doesn't follow those rules, then he's at fault. And being qualified to stay at the stage of Ruchi and follow those rules, if he follows the rules of, below Nishta, then he's also at fault. So that's how we have to understand this. Now, another example I'll give you. Somebody is qualified for Shuddha Bhakti. Sarvadharman Parityajya Mahamekam Sharanam Raja Aham Tvam Sarva Papebhyo Mokshishami Mahasucha. So being qualified for Shuddha Bhakti, if he doesn't practice the angas of Shuddha Bhakti, then he's at fault. Being qualified for Shuddha Bhakti, still, he practices Mishra Bhakti or he practices, Mishra Bhakti, sorry, then he is also at fault. Ubayor. Okay. So steadiness in one's own position is declared as actually piety. And deviation from one's position is considered impiety. I hope this point is very, very clear to all the devotees. If you have any questions, you can raise your hands. Prescribed and prohibited rules are further divided into two categories, conditional and constitutional. So these do's and don'ts, vidhi and nishedh, are of two categories, conditional and constitutional. The living entity is pure spirit. The prescription prohibitions in the living entity's constitutional position are constitutional rules. So there are constitutional rules, constitutional do's and don'ts. But when the living entity is separated from his transcendental position, he accepts the designations given by the illusionary energy and is entangled in this world. These are four designations. So when we are in the material world, we have designations based on our conditionings. So then we have to accept conditional do's and don'ts. These designations are of many varieties, but the constitutional situation is one without second. Jivara Sarupoy Krishnera Nityadas. In the eternal state of the living entity, prema is the only prescription and envy is the only prohibition. This prescription and prohibition is subordinate to the living entity's eternal nature. So the living entity is eternal, Jivara Sarupa Krishna Nityadas. He has to love the Lord, prema, and then the don't is, he has to be free from envy. Dharma projita kaitavo paramo nirmatsaranam. Vedam vastavamatra vastu shivadam tapatrayan moolanam. Srimad Bhagavate Mahamune Krite Kim va pareshvara sadhyo ridya avaruttate atra shushubhish tat shanat. So here you can see in this verse 112, dharma projita kaitavatra, pure parama dharma, it is supreme dharma, pure devotional service. Then what is there? Nirmatsaranam. One has to be completely free from envy. That means one should be free, 100% pure in heart. And then the Lord is, situated in the heart. Sadhya Hridaya Varudate, Atra Kritibi. They are accomplished. So immediately the Lord is situated in the heart. Prema, because they have prema for the Lord. But the criteria is nirmatsaranam. You should be free. So the constitutional do's and don'ts is prescription is prema and prohibition is envy. So the constitutional do's and don'ts. Prescription is prema, prohibition is envy. The living entity imbued with prema and devoid of envy is the shelter of eternal rasa. So ultimately, he is relishing rasa with the Lord. Although the rasa is in five varieties, still they are one undivided spiritual truth. So although there are these five rasas, Shanta, Dasya, Sakya, Vatsalya, and Madhurya, but it is a transcendental reality, and there is, of course, there's gradation in rasas based on in which rasa is stated, but it is one absolute truth. That's it. The rules of that position are not to be discussed here. So there is no need to discuss the rules of that position here now. We must know only that this state is the eternal condition of the living entity. So this is the eternal condition of the living entity. Although the condition said the rules of different types, still all the steps are divided into three principal categories. Now, after describing the constitutional do's and don'ts, now Bhaktivinoda Thakur speaks about the conditional do's and don'ts. According to the Vedas, Bhagavad Gita, and all the Smritis, three principal divisions are found: karma, jnana, and bhakti. So there are karma do's and don'ts, there is jnana do's and don'ts, and there are bhakti do's and don'ts. In each division, certain prescriptions and certain prohibitions are enjoined. So there are conditional do's and don'ts. This is according to Bhagavad Gita, Vedas, and the Smritis. Karma, Jnana, and Bhakti. And karma has its do's and don'ts. Jnana has its do's and don'ts, and Bhakti has its do's and don'ts. So let us see this. In the karma division, the rules of Varnashram and the 10 supplementary samskars as well as regulative prayers are prescribed. Sins and bad habits are prohibited. So in the karma division, what are the rules? Rules of Varnashram you have to follow. And then the Dashavidha Samskar and regulative praise. And what are the don'ts? Sins and bad habits. In the Jnana division, sannyas, renunciation, detachment, and discussing matter and spirit is prescribed. So Gyan means to take the renounced Jnana path means you have to be a sannyasi. You cannot be a grahastha. And then you have to practice vairagya, virakti, that is detachment. And then you have to discuss sankhya, analysis between matter and spirit. Now, in jnana, you cannot do activities, fruitive activities. Then you're not qualified to be in jnana. So that is a prohibition. Fruitive activities, forbidden activities, and attachment to sense enjoyment are prohibited. In the bhakti division, indifference, performance of activities favorable to devotion, following the prescription and prohibitions of the jnana division, and cultivating devotional service with the help of those prescriptions and prohibitions are prescribed. So in the bhakti division, these are the you know prescriptions. All activities opposed to the Lord, jnana, renunciation, attachment to sense enjoyment, conclusions opposed to devotional service, and giving up action is prohibited. You cannot give up action. In Gyan, you have to give up action. In Bhakti, we have to do actions for the pleasure of the Lord. That is what is Bhakti, You cannot give up actions. So that is prohibited. So I hope all the three karma, prescriptions and prohibitions, jnana, prescription and prohibitions, and bhakti, prescriptions and prohibitions is very clear. When the conditioned soul advances by giving up his illicit activities, all or low class character, then he attains the level of karma kanda. Such a person should remain in varnashram and aspire to attain the level of jnana. That is his duty. He should remain in varnashram until he attains detachment from material activities by discussing the difference between matter and spirit and analyzing the nature of the false ego. Otherwise, he becomes sinful. So I mentioned how globally by practicing varnashram and performing his duties according to his swabhava karma, that is what is varnashram. There is swabhava, there is swakarma, and there is the swadharma, which is varnashram. So there is a gradual detachment because you're free from the fruits of the activities and there is knowledge. So this knowledge gradually leads to self-realization. So this is what is prescribed. When that detachment is attained, then his higher qualification destroys his attachment to fruity activities. So now he is having nishtha for gyan. So he has to give up. He is having adhikar for gyan. So he has to give up karma. If he's still, being qualified for gyan, if he doesn't follow that he's not studying that, then he's at fault. If he takes up to karma, being qualified for gyan, then also is at fault. But if that person still remains inclined to the rules of karma kanda, then he cannot make advancement. So I hope this point is very, very clear. The duty of one who has attained the level of Jnana is to remain fixed in knowledge, steadiness in Jnana. Until he attains a taste for devotional service, he should remain under the rules of Jnana Kanda. Until he attains a taste for devotional service, Ruchi. So this Ruchi is not, the stage of Ruchi, which is after Nishta. This is the beginning stage of, Ruchi or taste in devotional service. The beginning stages of devotional service. As soon as the qualification for devotional service manifests, he should give up his attachment for Jnanakanda. Otherwise, he is guilty of Niyamagraha and will not make advancement. So when he gets adhikar for bhakti, Swalparuchir evasya bhakti tattva avadbodhita. In the Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, Rupa Goswami means Swalparuchi. You have attained ruchi, then you're qualified for devotional service. Must please remember, you should be what? Detached and free from attachment to fruitive activities. Now, I hope the audience are very clearly trying to understand this because we are all, in one sense, practicing devotional service. We are practicing bhakti. But I have a question for you all here. Are we having that taste in devotional service that we are only performing devotional service? Are we doing any activities based on the desires of the subtle body, attachment to fruitive activities? Are we doing any activities? Are we on the level of, you know, self-realization? Because, one has to be fixed in the knowledge that I'm not this body, I'm the spirit soul. What is your thoughts about this? Please raise your hands. Anyone would like to share? Any thoughts? I hope you understood my question. Should I repeat the question or you're clear with it? No response. Yes. Uh, yes. Devhuti Kapil Prabhuji, yes.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu. Prabhuji, like, when it comes
Can you
to
speak a
taste
little
in,
loudly, please?
yeah, when it comes to that taste in bhakti, right? Like, it is not consistent.
First thing,
That
okay.
is the main thing, right? Like, so say for example, yesterday we had the celebration of Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur's appearance day. So the moment we are in the temple and we are with the association of Vaishnavas, it is like very, very uplifting. But when we start walking from the temple, 15 minutes away we go,
Yes.
you can see the difference, like
Okay.
the consciousness getting
Good
contaminated, you can
pointed
feel
out.
it.
Good, you pointed out this point. Now,
Yeah.
secondly, is there an inclination in us to only serve the Lord or act for the, you know, pleasure of the senses?
It is fluctuating, Prabhu, to be honest.
It is.
It is fluctuating. We keep
Um,
fluctuating
so
between
that is
goodness and
why
passion in the
Anya
first place.
Abhilashita Shunyam. We
Yep,
don't fulfill the criteria of Anya Abhilashita Shunyam.
right.
Anya Abhilashita means no other desire except the desire to please the Lord.
Mm,
This is the only desire we have. But we have so many desires and aspirations. So that is why we are actually in the state where we are trying to develop that faith and we are still not detached from this world. That is why bhakti begins from Brahma Bhuta platform. Brahma Bhuta Prasannatma na sochati na kamprati
mm,
Sama Sarveshu Bhuteshu Mad Bhakti Labate Param. So only from there we have now got, you know, deep faith and taste in devotional service, and we don't have any taste for any material activities. So
mm,
from there, Shuddha Bhakti begins. That is the point. From there, Shuddha Bhakti begins. Till then, our bhakti is mixed, and there is development of faith happening.
mm,
So this is the point which should be very clearly understood. And then Bhaktivinoda Thakur quotes, Tavat karmani kurvita na nirvidyeti avata mat kata shravanado va shraddhayava na jayate. As long as one is not satiated by fruity activity, na nirvidyeti avata. So is this our condition that we are satiated with, disgusted with material activities? No, we still do material activities. We still, although we have experienced that overeating gulab jamun, we have stomach trouble, but next time when the feast is there, gulab jamun comes, still we overeat and still have stomach trouble. So as long as one is not satiated by fruity activity and has not awakened the taste for devotional service by Shravanam Kirtanam Vishnu, Mat Kata Shravanado va Shraddha. Now here Shraddha means, complete surrender, Sharnagati, Sarva Dharman Paritejya, pure Shraddha or Purna Shraddha. One has to act according to the regulative principles of Vedic Injana. Tavat karmani kurvita. That means as long as we have the subtle body conditioning, there is the subtle body and the subtle body has unlimited samskars. So then you know, uh, we have to follow the regulative principles of the Vedic Injana. So that's why Prabhupada in Apichetsu Duracharo Purport, he mentions a very important statement, and we need to understand this. Prabhupada in the Bhagavad Gita 9.29, 9.30, Apichet Sudara Sarovar. Yeah, he says that there are, you know, when a living entity is conditioned, he has two kinds of activities. One is conditional, other is constitutional. So see, Bhaktivinoda Thakur has spoken about conditional rules, do's and don'ts, constitutional do's and don'ts. As for protecting the body or abiding to the rules of the society and state, certainly there are different activities, even for devotees, he says, in connection with conditional life. And such activities are called conditional. So very clear, same thing Bhaktivinoda Thakur. Besides this living entity who is fully conscious of his spiritual nature and is engaged in Krishna consciousness or devotional service has activities which are called transcendental. Such activities are performed in his constitutional position and they are technically called devotional service. Now, Prabhupada says something very interesting. Now, in the conditioned state, sometimes devotional service and conditional service in relation to body will parallel one another. But then again, sometimes these activities become opposed to one another. As far as possible, devotee is very cautious that he does not do anything that will disrupt his wholesome condition. He knows that perfection in his activities depends on his progressive realization of Krishna consciousness. Sometimes, however, it may be seen that a person in Krishna consciousness commits some act which may be taken as most abhorrent socially or politically. But such a temporary fall down does not disqualify. Now, so basically, that activity, sinful activity does, it is because of the subhava. So when you're transcendental, you only do constitutional activities. And what are the constitutional activities? That is already spoken in 9.14 of the Bhagavad Gita. Satatam kirtayanto mam yatantasya dridavata namasyanteto mam bhaktya nityayukta upasate. Continuous chanting the glories. So the constitutional, position of the living, the constitutional activity of the devotee is that he is, 24 hours engaged in bhajan. Mahatmanastu mam partha daivim prakritim ashrita. Daivim prakritim ashrita. The point what I was mentioning is that when you come to the stage where your faith is so deep and you have attained, you're on the transcendental position, then you're qualified for Shuddha Bhakti. You're qualified for Shuddha Bhakti. So that is the point which is being made also here in this verse. Tavat karmani kurvita nar nirvidyate avata mat kata shravanado va shraddhayavanna jayate. Till then, one has to act according to the rules. So as long as you have conditioning, you will have to follow those rules as Prabhupada is telling in his Bhagavad Gita purport. So how do you know whether I am having that complete Shraddha and Sharanagati? See if you are having conditioning and you are affected by the modes, or see whether you are transcendental. If you are transcendental, then you have that deep faith by also studying the Shastra and having deep faith in the import of the Shastra and by following the Shastra, Bhakti Shastra, I mean. Shraddha or faith is the only qualification for Bhakti. Now here the Shraddha means not pure Shraddha, not mixed Shraddha. Okay, it's pure Shraddha. As stated in the Srimad Bhagavatam, that Shraddha is the only qualification. Tasman mad bhakti yuktasya yogino vai madatmana na jnanam na cha vairagyam prayo shreyo bhavetiha. Therefore, for a devotee engaged in my loving service, mad bhakti yuktasya yogina, with mind fixed on me, madatmana, the cultivation of knowledge and renunciation, jnana and vairagya, are generally not the means for achieving the highest perfection within this world. Na praya shreyo bhavet iha. The temple of Krishna Prem is situated in the highest peak of Golok Vrindavan. Very interesting point now Bhaktivinoda Thakur is making. In order to reach that peak, one has to cross the 14 planetary systems of Karma Kanda, the Viraj Brahma Loka of the Jnana Kanda, and then rise above Vaikunta. By gradually giving up attachment to the stages of karma and jnana, one becomes eligible for bhakti. After crossing the various stages of bhakti, one reaches the temple door of prema. So there is the 14 planetary systems of karma kanda, then there is the jnana kanda, then there is Vaikunta, and then there is Golok Vrindavan. Now the point here is that one has to come to that stage of Shraddha. Shraddha Shabde Vishwas Sudrida Nishchay Krishna Bhakti Kaile Sarva Karma Krita Hoy. Sarva karma krita hoy, that I need not perform any activities except pure devotional service. That means you're free from the 14 planetary systems of karma kanda, and then you should be situated in the transcendental position. That is like jnana kanda. And then you don't have desire for salokya, samipya, shashti, or sarupi. Diyamanam nagananti vinamat sevanam jana. So this is anya bilashita shunyam stage. This is anya bilashita shunyam stage. Then you enter into Shuddha Bhakti, and there are the stages in Shuddha Bhakti: Sadhu Sangha, Bhajan Kriya, Nirt Nivritti, Nishtha, Ruchi, Asakti, Bhava, and then Prema. So that's the point Bhaktivinoda Thakur is making. Shraddha is the only rule for people established on the level of the on the level of bhakti. As anarthas or unhonored habits are destroyed by the power of devotional service performed under the shelter of sadhu and guru, that Shraddha transforms into devotional service with Nishtha, firm faith. So, we enter with pure Shraddha or Purna Shraddha or Sharnagati, and then our bhajan destroys the anarthas under the shelter of sadhu and guru. Our bhajan destroys all the anarthas. And then our Shraddha is Naishtiki Shraddha, which is the stage of Nishtha. As the anarthas are further destroyed, one progresses from the level of Nishtha to Ruchi or taste, from Ruchi to Asakti or attachment, and from Asakti to Bhava or emotion. When Bhava in the form of Rati or affection is mixed with appropriate ingredients, it becomes Rasa. So at the stage of Bhava, one is having Stahi Bhava, and Stahi Bhav mixes with all the ingredients, the Vibhava, Anubhava, Satviki Bhava, and Sanchari Bhava, and gives rise to Rasa. So that's the subject matter of Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu. I'll not go more into detail. So now I have given an example. Just like rava, ghee, sugar, dry fruits, milk, they're all ingredients. When they mix together and they're combined, you get halwa, which is rasa. Similarly, the difference in bhava and rasa is that many bhavas unitedly give rise to rasa. So similarly, there is the stahi bhav at the stage of rati. Then vibhav, anubhav, sanchari bhav, vaivichari bhav, and satviki bhav all combine together to give rise to rasa. Okay. So any questions up till now you have? Any questions, any clarifications? Any questions, any clarifications? If you don't have any questions, then I'll ask you questions. How many were able to understand very clearly this point, what I made about the stages, that Shraddha is the entry door for pure devotional service. And then anarthas are destroyed by bhajan performed in the association of sadhus. And then further he attains Naishtiki Bhakti, and from there Nishtha, Ruchi, Asakti, Bhava, and Prema. How many were able to understand? Please raise your hand. Hey, Gita Mataji. And again, this point, which is Tavat Karmani Kurvita Na Nirvidyeti Avata Mat Kata Shravanado Va Shraddha Yavan Na Jayate. So, this is a very important verse. Here, Shraddha means what? Anyone Can say Shraddha means what? Sunita Mataji, you had raised your hand that you have understood. So Shraddha means what? Here. Yes, I've unmuted you. What is the meaning of Shraddha here? Hare Krishna. I have unmuted you from my side.
Shraddha means over here, one is not, uh, he is not behind any fruitive activity.
Yes. One has no desire for any fruitive activity, or one is completely disgusted with all fruitive activities. One is satiated, that's the point, with by fruitive activity. I don't want to do, I'm just giving an example of a grahastha who, I don't want to do any now duties related to family. I have taken care of everyone. I have settled them. And now I have no inclination to do any business, anything. I just want to, you know, perform devotional service. Of course, it is maturity in the knowledge of the Bhakti scriptures. And he is on the transcendental platform and is completely ready to surrender to the Lord. Sarva Dharman Parityaja. So that is the stage of Shraddha, and that is the beginning of pure devotional service. And he has now taste. We have little taste, but we have also taste for doing activities based on our swabhava. So that at this, when in we are situated like this, then we should do also constitutional activities, conditional activities. A balance is required. And as long as one has not transcended the conditional activities, one should, do these activities, like a railway track, which runs on two tracks. And then when one transcends the conditional conditionings and one is situated in the transcendental position, then Mahatmanastu Mampartha Devim Prakritimashita Bhajante Ananya Manuso. Ananya Manuso has been the term used there. Bhajante Ananya Manaso. Ananya Bhakti begins there without deviation of the mind. The mind is not deviated, the mind is not attracted to anything else. From there, Shuddha Bhakti begins. From there, Shuddha Bhakti begins. From there, Shuddha Bhakti begins. So, this is very important for us to understand. So, now our bhakti, I'm not speaking about y'all, but I'm speaking for myself, that the bhakti is mixed because we have conditioning. We have conditioning. Only when we come to the transcendental position, Brahma Bhuta Prasannatma na sochati na kankshati sama sarveshu bhuteshu mad bhakti labate param. So para bhakti begins from there when you are on the Brahma Bhuta stage. It means you are self-realized and there is no inclination to do activities based on your sabhava. That means you fulfill the criteria of Anya Abhilashita Shunyam. Anya Abhilashita Shunyam. So from there, bhakti begins. Shuddha Bhakti, Shraddha. And that's why, when one is having adhikar for bhakti, then he need not practice, the limbs of jnana, cultivation of knowledge and renunciation. Jnana here refers to knowledge which is leading to impersonal liberation. And jnana, renunciation, vairagya is the anga of jnana. So there is no need of practicing the limbs of Gyan here. He has to only practice the limbs of Bhakti because he has adhikar for Bhakti. So that is what the point also this verse is making. And then we saw this stages, the stages, okay? And how Bhava in turn turns to Rasa, okay? So there is still more a lot discussion about this, and I feel it is wise that we'll not be able to complete it today. So we'll continue the discussion tomorrow. But I'll stop here, and if you have any questions, I'll take up. Yes, Chakrama Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna, everybody. Prabhuji, until unless we don't, means we are desireless and we don't start our Shuddha Bhakti, we can't means we won't be able to have a anartha's niviti. We can't have anartha's niviti. We'll be stuck up.
Yeah, yeah.
So I don't think we'll be able to do it in this life.
No,
Because
no,
I'm
no.
from
Can you
5 to
speak a
7
little
years.
loudly and clearly, please? I'm not able to hear you clearly.
Okay. Until unless we don't have desires, anyabilishita shunyam, we don't get that to that stage.
Mhm.
We have desires, okay, whatever it is.
Mhm.
So until unless we don't come to a stage of anyabilishita shunyam, we won't have a shuddh bhakti. We will not be able to. We will not practicing our pure devotional service. So until unless we don't get to these two stages, our anarthas niviti will not happen in this one life.
Okay, okay, I got your question. I got your question. Basically, uh, when we take up to bhakti, although the bhakti is not pure, because we don't have that pure Shraddha, there is a kind of anarth nivritti happening. We become free from bad habits. We, follow the regulative principles, no illicit sex, no intoxication, no meat eating, no gambling. This is meant to lead a sinless life, a life free of sins. So these are also kind of anarthas, like, somebody had smoking habit and he starts chanting Hare Krishna, he gives up that smoking habit. So many bad habits we have, drinking tea and coffee, we give that up. So in one sense, anarth nivritti is happening even in the beginning stages of our spiritual life. But when that development of faith comes to the point of sarvadharman parityaja, and we have realized the import of the scriptures, we are on the transcendental platform, then we take up to Shuddha Bhakti. Then with that bhajan performed at that stage, there are different types of anarthas which are destroyed. So there is a different level of anartha nivritti which happens. There are the apradutta anarthas, the sukritutta anarthas, duskritutta anarthas, and bhaktiutta anarthas. So those
My
anarthas
goodness.
start getting destroyed. Even little bit, we can see that there is relief from the fire of material existence even when we take up to bhakti. But that complete Davagni Nirvapanam happens, when we take up to Shuddha Bhakti, when there is no material desire. Because as long as material desires are there, the heart is burning. But when there is no material desire, then it's completely, there's only desire to please Krishna. So that's when complete Mahadavagni Nirvapanam. So the heart which is burning because of lust, when we take up to bhakti, it's like in a cloud, in the desert, there is so much of heat, scorching heat. And even if it doesn't rain, just a cloud, and you get the shade of the cloud, there is so much relief. So we get relief from material existence by taking up to bhakti, but the complete relief is when the shower of rain happens and it completely cleanses our heart. So there are gradual stages in which anarthas are destroyed. So even in the beginning stages, anarthas are destroyed, but they are different kinds of anarthas. But with the practice of Shuddha Bhakti, a different level of anarth nivritti happens by which we can attain, Raga Bhakti and then attain pure Bhava and Prema for the Lord. I hope it is clear.
Yeah, okay, Prabhu, right.
Okay. Any other questions anyone else has up till now what we have discussed? Any other clarifications? You can raise your hands. Okay, so we will stop here and continue our discussion tomorrow also on Niyamagraha. I did not want to go in a hurry with this topic because I know for many it is quite new concepts are there. And so that's why we want to systematically cover this. Thank you very, very much. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur ki jai. Shri Bhaktyaloka ki jai. Hare Krishna.